The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv, a rainy day, and
a short week.
And a short week, yeah.
This weekend's in pie and turkey and
no Friday show.
And no Friday show, correct.
Yes. And so let's begin the show. We have a couple of pretty big bombshells here. I guess first is the tragedy in Waukesha. We have to,
Yep.
I think we should all remember the lives. There are 5 confirmed dead, and there are varying reports on the injured. I saw an estimate of 40 this morning.
I saw the same estimate. So.
Yeah, I saw the estimate of 40. There are others that are saying dozens, and they're not specific.
Well, 40 it could be dozens. That's more than
multiple
3
dozens. Yeah, multiple dozens. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tragedy. I guess there's continuing reporting on it. They do, I believe, have a suspect.
Well, I guess he drove into a holiday parade or a Christmas parade, whatever they wanted to call it, and took down a whole line. Now, there's no explanation yet on why he did this. Was this a terrorist attack? Was this a suicide attempt? Was this just somebody who's a nut job and wanted to go off and take out a few people?
Well, I did hear some things this morning. But obviously these things, you know how the news is. The news is so, the news cycles are so quick today. Sometimes they put out information that is not 100% accurate.
Right.
So this is subject to revision. But this morning I heard that the individual who is a suspect had an extensive criminal record, and he was fleeing from a knife incident, a stabbing incident.
Okay.
And that's what they said this morning on one of the stations, that he did have an extensive criminal record. There was a stabbing incident that supposedly he was allegedly involved in, and he was fleeing from that particular.
I was going to say that if that is accurate, then that explains exactly what happened here. He was fleeing from the police or from law enforcement, and he didn't care who he took out. Because normally when they're fleeing, they hit cars, kids, adults, whatever.
And especially if they have an extensive criminal record, which meant he's probably going to, although today, I think that's one of the problems when you see these kinds of heinous behaviors of whether it's this incident or riots and people having an idea that they get to kill people or injure or maim people who have a different opinion than them. And I think it gets back to when, obviously, this is my opinion, but the problem is that we see virtually no punishment. We've forgotten what the criminal justice system used to be. It used to be a system of punishing people for not being socialized, basically. That's why they had all those programs to re-socialize, rehabilitate people who were not habilitated in the first place. And I have been to a lot of countries. When I was in the military, I got to see a lot of the world. And I can tell you one thing. This country, even in the old days when we had more enforcement and stiffer penalties, was still one of the most dangerous places to be. If you look at especially European countries, you could, and of course Japan. And one thing all those countries had in common was they had tremendously harsh sentencing guidelines. If you did something that wasn't the social norm, people were afraid. I was in the Dominican Republic once, and I was getting a tour of the city in the Dominican Republic, and the guide, we drove by, we were in downtown, I don't know, it was Santo Domingo or Puerto Plata, but we were driving by, and he said, well, there's the prison. And just offhandedly, he said to me, and it always stuck in my mind, nobody wants to go there. because sometimes you don't get out. And whether you want to believe it or not, and I know all the sociologists in this country keep telling you, let them all out of jail, they'll ultimately rehabilitate. Then they murder somebody else, and they go, let them out of jail again. If you don't think that swift and just and harsh punishment is a deterrent, you're crazy.
Well,
that's just. Obviously it's my opinion, but I've seen that firsthand in a lot of other countries, and we saw what happened with that author that let out the guy who wrote Belly of the Beast, and he invited him to a cocktail party when he got him out of jail, lobbying for a convicted murderer, because he wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom on time when he was a child. They found an excuse, and what did he do after the cocktail party? He murdered somebody. Yep, he murdered a second person.
Yeah, it happens. And, I worked in corrections for a while, and I'll tell you right now, the habitual offenders can't function outside of the prison system in this country. They're so used to the structure of the prison system. You're up at 6, you eat at 7, you do this, you do that, everything's on time. Counts are at 7, 11, 4. They do the counts, they do it regularly. They know what's going on. They know their day. There's no question about it, and they're used to that. So if you have a long-term prisoner who is used to that, when he gets out, or if he gets out into normal society, he can't function because there's no structure, and they need the structure. So what happens is they become habitual, and they have more recidivism. So they do it again and again. I know one inmate, sticks off the top of my head because he's from Fall River. I've known him, we all were in the same schools and stuff. And even when he was in school, he was a little thief. And then he started entering the juvenile court system, which to me is a joke because they go, bad boy, don't do it again. We don't have juvenile prisons anymore, it seems. As that progressed, then he came out of the juvenile system, went into the adult system, and they were still slapping his hand saying, don't do it again. It wasn't until somebody got injured that they finally said, okay, we got to put you away. And they started with the House of Correction. So that's 2 years or less.
Yeah.
And a couple of stints in the House of Correction, they finally said, nope, you're going to go to the big boy prison now. Yeah. So Walpole, here he comes.
And, people will say, you're just stretching it. But it's not only in that particular environment. You see people who were in the military their entire lives have difficulty adjusting to civilian life.
Because of the structure.
Because they were, we used to call them lifers. They make a career out of the military. They spend 25, 30 years. And they get used to, as you said, the structure. You're up, you get reveille, you stand formation, you do this, your meals. You go to the mess hall at a particular time. Your uniforms, your health care, everything's taken care of. You don't have to fill out any forms. You don't have to bring cards with you. You go get your shots. You go to the dispensary. Everything's taken care of. And it's not a criminal activity, obviously. But structure. And see, this gets back to why we're having, in my opinion, such a problem in this society. Laws are the structure that people who aren't in these regimented societies, whether it's prison or the military or something like that, or the fire department or police department, which are quasi-military, it's our laws that give us the structure by which this society can function peacefully. And now with this wokey wave that we got, the wave of wokeness, where they think that let all the criminals out, and that's gonna cure society because they're somehow gonna miraculously not be criminals anymore. And the irony is, I'll wrap this up because it's frankly aggravating. I just saw a segment this morning on the TV where they changed the amount where people would be prosecuted for shoplifting. And this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning in San Francisco, they were breaking into stores, and they had cars. Dozens of cars parked in the street with their license plates covered while people went in and smashed and grabbed everything they could and they were looking at the cost to make sure they didn't get prosecuted. So if you people really believe that these animals obey anything except the fact that get what they want, take what they want, because most of them are sociopaths. And the reality is they don't care. Look at this guy. The people that were injured for the most part were young children and elderly people
who were celebrating the holidays.
And there was a group of elderly women that had some kind of group that was marching in the parade, and I believe one of those women was killed. It's a travesty. They have a total disregard for human life and anything but their own. This guy was getting away, and as you said, he didn't care who he mowed down in the process. Right. And this is just unacceptable to me. We need to go back to, like I said, don't go to jail in Japan, people. Don't get busted for a criminal act in Japan. You're going to jail for a long, long time. I remember that Australian woman that they were going to execute. Then they knocked it down to life, and the whole world was outraged over in Indonesia or something like that. But that's their punishment. And they finally knocked it down to 40 years. But still, that's the reason that the places that produce the drugs, like Turkey, don't have a major drug problem, because they export everything, and nobody gets busted for drugs in Turkey.
That's right.
Because nobody wants to go to jail in Turkey.
It's not the midnight run in Turkey.
That's right, sure. Exactly. But, you know, let's get it. But I'm going to circle back, as Psaki says, as much as I disdain that comment, and let's remember the people who were injured in this absolutely tragic and uncalled for circumstance. And I think but I still got to believe the reason is that these people are just getting away with way too much in today's society.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Well, while we're still doing some national stuff, the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. Talk about controversial for some reason. Okay?
Well,
now they're all saying, now you've got the father or a family member of one of the victims saying that lawsuits have been filed. He won't say whether or not he's filed one or is going to file one against Kyle Rittenhouse or his family. He believes that there was no justice. And our own Attorney General said that this is not America with a verdict like this. She said, this is the picture of hate and injustice. And she posted a picture of Kyle Rittenhouse.
What Attorney General?
Maura Healey.
Oh, that's what I'm saying, because you said she.
Yeah.
You know, you're not talking about Merrick Garland.
No.
Who's that? Well, Maura Healey needs to take a chill pill, and you know she needs to be removed from office. Which one was it that's filing the lawsuit? The pedophile, the domestic abuser, or the other felon? Which one was it? And it's that was a rhetorical question. I don't care. Listen, I'm not a lawyer. And apparently lawyers don't remember what lawyers do. That was a case not about whether you agreed with what he did, not whether you agreed with whether he should have been there or he should have had an AR-15. This wasn't about the Second Amendment. This wasn't about political affiliations. This wasn't about color of skin, because he's the worst white supremacist in history because he killed 3 white people.
That's right.
So he may be the worst white supremacist. That's a label that these left-wing nitwits try to fashion a narrative to make it for their own benefit. Maura Healey should be ashamed of herself. That was a self-defense case. And in that case, and that was all it was about. You can disagree whether he should have been there. Listen, he shouldn't have been there. But the protesters shouldn't have been there either. So let's face it, they shouldn't have burnt down Waukesha a year ago. They shouldn't have burnt down half the country. And they're all walking around. Nobody was posting. Maura Healey wasn't posting. She was calling those people who destroyed property and murdered people heroes. The criminal justice system is just that. He was being tried for murder, 2 counts of murder and another count of probably assault with intent or whatever the charges were. But his defense was self-defense.
And the video showed that.
And he proved it.
He did.
He proved it. The individual who was wounded admitted on the stand that he was holding a loaded gun to his face when he was shot. Rittenhouse didn't shoot him when he had his hands up. When he put his hands down and pointed a loaded gun at him, he protected himself. The other two reached for the guns. They had video. The prosecution suppressed clear video, even clearer than the video that exonerated him. The fact is, Maura Healey should know this, and that's why she's a disgrace. This entire state is just a woke disgrace. If I could move out of here, I would, believe me. You know, I can't get enough for my house, and I'm too old to move, you know, and start a new life. I wish I was, because this is a disgrace. When you have people who are supposed to have law degrees saying that this is hate, well, it doesn't matter. I hate to say it. If an Antifa black person or BLM person shot those three people, it would have been self-defense under the same circumstances. It didn't matter. And you people who have a law degree should have that degree removed. You should be disbarred, because you're spinning everything for your own political narrative, just like the other guy, Blake. There are people. The chairman of the DNC actually said he was dead and he was unarmed. The guy's not dead, and he was armed in that circumstance. So the news media has absolutely no ethics when it comes to twisting and lying about the truth. They're a propaganda arm now. They're no longer news. News is supposed to be accurate. They're not accurate. And Maura Healey, you know, she's a disgrace. Well, you know, so because for her to say this is hate, well, you know something? Unfortunately, as a lawyer, you should understand that even if that was hate, it was legal hate. Because some things can actually be morally wrong and legally right. And his presence there is not the issue. The case was tried on whether he had a legal right to shoot those people. And it was proven beyond any reasonable doubt to that jury that it did. And you can dislike the verdict all you want, but the proof was clear. And if you want to bring in all the other things, all you're doing is twisting a narrative. Let's look at it for what it was. It was a court case on self-defense. The prosecution was abysmal. They proved their case, and that's what it was all about. And all these wokies putting out all this stuff and yammering again about it, and oh, this is how, well, you know, it may all be all those things. But don't say that this wasn't justice. It was true justice, because those people that were jurors, and congratulations to them for ignoring the threats of bodily harm to them, the chants outside the courtroom, and deciding that case on the evidence. And it was clear by real lawyers like Alan Dershowitz and other people said, listen, there's absolutely no doubt he should be acquitted. But the fact that in the United States of America, the place that is supposed to be the place with the best judicial system in the world, that you had half the population wanting a verdict based on their emotion rather than the law, shows how dangerous this country has become for people with a differing opinion than the wokies.
Well, and again, you said it very clearly. This wasn't decided by the judge. It wasn't decided by the prosecutor. It wasn't decided by the defense. It was decided by 12 jurors, 12 men and women who reviewed the evidence and came to a unanimous decision that he was not guilty on all 5 counts. This had nothing to do with the race. It had nothing to do with hate. It had nothing to, this had to do with the law. And the law in Wisconsin is a lot different than the law in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening now is the family member of the victim who was killed is filing petitions with the Department of Justice for a second bite at the apple. He wants them prosecuted federally.
There's double jeopardy laws.
But remember, state and federal, they're two different things. So the jeopardy hasn't applied in federal court. That's the loophole they've got.
Well, I don't believe that.
I don't believe it either.
If that goes to the Supreme Court, if you're tried by a jury of your peers in a state, and by the way, Merrick Garland, that turd, I mean, he lied to Congress.
Yes.
About going after. He goes after mothers and fathers of children in school departments, and he said they weren't being tagged as terrorists, and they were. Mm-hmm. They have documented proof now that he lied to Congress. So you got a pack of liars who are pushing a political agenda rather than protecting the sanctity of the judicial system. And remember something, and apparently all these lawyers don't read. The sovereignty of the states is constitutionally protected.
Exactly.
This individual was tried in a state under their law.
That's right.
And that is protected by the Constitution of the United States. And all this is BS narrative to push their hate. They're the people who hate. This wasn't, as you said, it wasn't the judge. It wasn't the prosecution. It also wasn't the mob. It wasn't the media, the left-wing media. It was a jury, as it stipulates in the law, a jury of his peers.
Yes.
Based on the evidence and the law. As a matter of fact, most of the real lawyers who looked at this were amazed that that gun charge was even brought. All the charges were brought, but especially the gun charge, because even the defense didn't manage to read the law on the guns. That gun was legal because it went on the length of the barrel.
Right.
And that's a long rifle.
Right.
That was legal for him to have under the law.
Right.
So, I mean, everybody forgets it. Oh, the hell with the law, and that's what they're great at.
Right.
It's just kind of like our mayor.
Well, all you have
What's
to do
the
is...
charter? Only when I want it.
Only when it works for me.
So, that's something that left-wing liberals always use. The law, until the law doesn't work in their favor, and then the hell with the law. We don't care about the law because we have higher ground than the law. Well, guess what? They're still lying every day. They're still calling them a white supremacist, although there's no proof to that. And the thing is, this is nothing more than they are the racists, they are the fearmongers, they are the haters, because they hate anybody and want them actually killed. They've said it on CNN. I've heard people say that they should go out and shoot anybody that likes Donald Trump.
Right.
And so don't give me that crap.
But if it was Donald Trump who said that,
are you kidding?
They'd have him in cuffs.
Believe me, if that, they're saying if that was a black man, he would have been shot by the police. There was no police around. Did you watch the videos, you nitwits? On CNN and MSNBC or MSDNC? Did anybody pay attention to the case? Did anybody look at the law? Apparently not. It was a self-defense case, boneheads, and he proved self-defense. And you can disagree with him. I'm sure if Kyle Rittenhouse was being perfectly truthful, he's probably the first one to say, you know something, I should have never showed up. I've ruined my life with this. You know something? He shouldn't have been there, but neither should the pedophile, the domestic abuser, and the other felon that was, by the way, yelling the N-word every other word. So who was the racist there? The guy that was using the N-word every 3 seconds, then pointing a gun at his face? And admitted under oath that he pointed a gun at his face, and the next day he was on CNN lying. He was on CNN and he lied.
Right.
He said he didn't do it. It wasn't. But under oath, he told the truth.
Well,
so who can you trust?
Right.
The lion libs or your own eyes.
And just look at what happened with Congress, okay? Merrick was there, lied to Congress.
Yep.
Did they issue a contempt citation?
No.
No. But if it was a Republican,
Like Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon, you want to make a bet they would have had him in handcuffs walking him out the door?
Okay.
No, they wouldn't have waited.
James Comey, all the rest of them.
It shows you the difference of the enforcement of the law and what is right and what is wrong under their system. Not under the system, under their system.
If they had their way, they would remove the blindfold from Lady Justice.
Yes, they would.
And they would remove the blindfold and put a BLM T-shirt on her. Because that's what they want.
Right.
They want justice only for them, and their justice is eliminate everybody who doesn't agree. They want China. They want North Korea. They don't want America. That's why they hate America. America allows people the freedom to have a different opinion. And they don't like that. They want to control it. They want this to be China. Be like that Chinese tennis player that disappeared. She's disappeared. The #1 player in China. A #1 doubles player in the world.
And then yesterday they let her out.
And congratulations on the World Tennis Association. Unlike the NBA, those woke weasels who only want the money from China, for standing up and making it public, and now they let her out.
Yep.
And I'm sure that they brainwashed her and threatened her, and like the other people. It's not the first one who has disappeared in China, but that's exactly what these people want. If you don't agree with them, there is no justice. The law does not apply. You know, and half of them, or more than half, I'd say probably 75, 80% of the people who are yammering about this are lawyers.
Yep.
And that's a travesty. They can't understand that this was a self-defense case.
Well, I mean, it's over and done with now, okay? It's over and done with. If they want to petition the Department of Justice to go after this guy, knock yourself out. I'm sure it will be struck down. It's an over and done case, all right? You don't like the verdict, okay. You know, when Aaron Hernandez was found guilty, there was a whole bunch of people that didn't like the verdict. But nobody said that this was racist, this was because it's gang affiliated. Nobody said that. They had 12 jurors, they amended a decision, and that was it. And they only spoke about the case once, and none of them have spoken about it since. Why? Because the decision is made, it was final, and that was it.
You're right. Well, the thing is that if you don't like the decision, you don't like the law.
That's right.
You're saying that you don't want the law to apply to people that you don't like or who you don't agree with, whose philosophy you don't agree with. But quickly, we're running short of time. You know, tonight on Channel 12,
yes,
that's the other bombshell, and we'll talk about it on Wednesday because we'll get more today. There is going to be a investigative report.
Target 12.
On Target 12 by Tim White on Fall River Police and some outstanding litigation, I think.
No, it's abuse of power.
Yeah, I think there's a lawsuit.
Video.
I think there's a lawsuit.
And they've got video of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out for the city. And that's going to be on WPRI-TV 12, Channel 12, at 5 o'clock. So, you know, take a peek at it. Once again, you know, Target 12 has come up with, I think, 3 or 4 stories on the Florida Police Department so far. And none of them have been glowing. None of them. They've all been scathing stories. Yeah. And they're all balanced. I don't want to hear that they're out for the Florida Police Department. No. When you make a mistake and they've got it on video, it's not something that they're making up. It's not something they're saying, oh, look at this. This is what they're doing.
Well, let me quickly say that everybody's entitled to due process, including the police officers.
That's right.
But let's all watch the videos and let's see what happens.
Yep, and let's make sure that a decision is rendered appropriately, okay? I'm not sure what's happening in the police department, that this is all of a sudden becoming a predominant occurrence, but I think that we need to address that at the leadership level. And remember, Paul, you have full-time leadership. I haven't seen it yet. I'm still looking.
I don't know if we got 1 second, but I've got to end this with one thing. Remember, all you wokies, Malcolm X, one of the biggest black leaders of the black Muslims, what he said at the end of his life before they assassinated him because they didn't agree with him, his own people, but he said, "I'm for the truth, no matter who tells it, and I'm for justice no matter who it's for. So remember that when you talk about the Rittenhouse case.
That's it.
You got to be for justice no matter who it's for.
I want to thank you all for watching. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching.